I am horrified at the concept of sitting and talking. Not good. Sofa. This is where I am. This is where I live. I legitimately live here. I'm going to focus on a handful of things to prepare you for Engineering 145. I'm supposed to be doing this in the studio, aka office, but we're doing this for now. Little tour. Towel for, whatever stuff. The Stanford hoop. You know what? You don't care about my towel stuff. You don't care about where I'm at. You just want the knowledge of how to hack Engineering 145. It's a class in technology entrepreneurship, and it's super cool. I've taken the class 3 times, taught it. It's a class that has a bell curve. There's a left side to the bell curve, not the good side, and a right side of the bell curve. I went to a school where, back in a time where there was actually grades on a bell curve. There was a difficulty in getting an A. You go to a school that gives you all A's and B's. I have a little bit of angst with that, but I'm going to set that aside because I did what my father, who went to MIT, told me to do rather than what he did. And what he did do is he went to a nice, posh, private school. What he told me to do was to go to a public school because I am not exactly an early bloomer academically, but I'm rising now. This is how I want to help you hack Engineering 145 and move you to the right side of the bell curve. I'm going to give you a handful of ideas. I'm not going to do a great job with communicating these things, so you might want to shut down your other windows. I'm an engineer. I went through public speaker training school. None of that really took. I really don't get invited to speak. In fact, even when I'm supposed to speak, I bring in guest speakers. I mean, do you want to hear me talk for 60 minutes? No, you don't. You want to see the people that I learn from because I am a really, really good mentee. My mentor, the book is What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School. Mark McCormick taught me when I was an undergrad, and I was an undergrad studying engineering. I moved to the right side in a snap. He has these recipes. They're 1983 recipes. If I called them my recipes that I learned from a pasty white dude who's awkwardly good looking in person but still a white dude, calling them recipes, business recipes from 1983, I don't think that's really going to sell anything. Calling them guacamole, awesome. So, hacking Engineering 145. 1. Traditionally, people think that a startup is risky. I don't think a startup is risky. I know a startup is risky. I would recommend to you to be like me and to never, ever, ever do a startup. Conventional wisdom says do a startup, go big, go home, go big or go home when you're an undergrad. Traditionally, do a startup. I say do an LCMCC. An LCMCC. That's what Mark McCormick taught me. LCMCC is a Larry Chang mini company concept. I'm sorry I got to put the Larry Chang up in front. It's just that way you can nomenclate it for something and blame someone if it goes wrong. A mini company concept is... It has no risk to it. It's doing a sequel to a business that you did not start. And this happens in the real world where there are sequels to things that aren't your sequel to do a sequel to. I mean, Matrix 2 and 3 were a sequel to Matrix 1. And, okay, some examples of sequels, sequelizing a business. Wicked. Wicked is a play that's a sequel to The Wizard of Oz. I haven't seen The Wizard of Oz, but I've seen Wicked a bunch of times because the hot girl wants to go to Wicked, and I actually enjoy it. That doesn't make me homo, does it? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I really like Wicked because you're building off of a parade that somebody else has already built. Another one is WordPress Engine, WP Engine. The name is even a sequel. The guy who started it, who's in Austin, Texas, his name escapes me. I think it's Dave, or Ben, I don't know, but his concept is genius. It's a hosting service just for WordPress. And I love Matt Mullenweg, and I think WordPress is awesome, but WordPress engine is even more hysterical because it doesn't have any risk to it. And I know seemingly being original is sacrilege, but the country that you live in, well, hopefully living in, or maybe visiting, has a document that governs it called the Constitution. And Thomas Jefferson, you think he came up with that as an original document? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. That was written by John Locke. In fact, Thomas Jefferson in early drafts, according to my AP history teacher, which actually do confirm, had the document called Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Property, but then didn't want to deal with property being corollary to slavery and abolishing it, change it to the pursuit of happiness, to then let Abraham Lincoln jump on that grenade and deal with slavery later, even though Thomas Jefferson wanted to right away. Sequelizing the concept is critical to the Larry Chang mini company concept. Following on the mini company concept, which you can Google, and I'll load up links down below, but you should just get used to Googling phrases and doing 3 things that minimize risk. So traditionally, startups are dangerous. So the second thing that people that are old that are telling us as undergrads to do is take risks early. I studied engineering as an undergrad. It was hard. It wasn't easy, and I'll be, a cat's butt if I'm going to roll the dice and not make the guaranteed 140 coming out of college that we all make if we're a halfway decent engineer. Risk, 3 things about risk. Risk minimization, risk mitigation, risk elimination. I know this makes me seem kind of different, but you can absolutely think through the different ways for risk. And it follows on to another set of 3, another set of triples. It's almost a triple threat of patterns. And there are these things. Please write these things down. Okay, risk minimization, risk mitigation, risk elimination. Now, these are the 3 things about patterns. Pattern recognition, you want to delegate to a mentor. Now, the old way was just get assigned a mentor. The new way is to how to woo a mentor that you don't know, or how to charm a VC that you don't know into mentoring you. So that's the new way to do it, is you want to go get your own mentor and charm them and send them thank you cards, which is, those are 2 phrases you want to Google: how to woo a mentor, how to charm a VC that you don't know to mentor you. There are specifically recipes that I'm going over. But you want to delegate pattern recognition. You want to delegate pattern recognition to a mentor. We as young people should not be pattern recognizing. We're too young to. Why not leverage somebody else's knowledge? And then we as young people, as undergrads in engineering, taking Engineering 145, we want to pattern replicate and pattern iterate. We want to pattern replicate and pattern iterate. Those are critical things. So outsource pattern recognition, pattern replication, pattern iteration. These all work in conjunction with the mini company concept. Now, risk here, patterns here. In the middle, okay, there's 13 awesome things in the middle. Guess what they are? The recipes from 1983, which I packaged up into scandalously marketing them as my own, which is called Gua Gua Guacamole. Gua Gua Guacamole. You guys might be chuckling, or maybe you just love guacamole, and you might be asking yourself, how does this apply to entrepreneurship? It absolutely does. And that is this parallel, this analogy, this metaphor, which is most people traditionally are making guacamole using 6 or 7 or 8 steps. Everybody uses the avocado, the onion, the tomato, maybe cilantro, lime, salt, maybe pepper. Okay, that's it. It's a 7-step recipe, and it's really hard to win an award when you're battling other people with another 7 to 10-step recipe. VCs who become entrepreneurs, okay, or who try to do entrepreneurship, they're looking for one-click guacamole. Have you ever tasted one-step guacamole that you bought off of a shelf? tastes like ass, okay? Me and my guacamole recipe are currently being used at the Four Seasons in Austin, Texas. How did I do that? I added in 30 to 35 genius steps, okay, into making guacamole. Public's out there doing 7-step entrepreneurship. I recommend that you do 650-step entrepreneurship. It's a specific method that works hard and smart. Guacamole. If we want to stay with the guacamole example, grill red peppers and orange bell peppers, marinate them, okay, grill them, then de-skin it, and then puree it. You're able to now barbecue guacamole. Now, you as entrepreneurs, you don't need to practice making guacamole, but you do need to understand and pattern replicate some of these guacamole recipes. One such guacamole recipe specifically gets you into going to a party that you're not invited to. How to network in a room that you're not invited to. When we as people who are academically smart, sometimes we don't do the street smart things that are required, which is how to go from crasher to VIP. And it's a specific example. It isn't just a 2-step recipe, which is, oh, mooch in, or, you know, jump a fence and then now you're in. I break it down into literally 35 micro little steps. Another guacamole recipe is how to host an after party to build awareness for your product, your mini company concept product. Another guacamole recipe is how to speak at any conference. Another guacamole recipe is how to engineer up a tidal wave of momentum. These are all things that you can use to promote your mini company concept. Now let's circle back to your mini company concept. The old way inside of Engineering 145 is you launch in the 4th, 5th, or 6th week, okay? Really late, and you're judged in class at Huang or whatever. VCs come to you and then you pitch in a very sterile environment. I think that you, as the person who's hacking Engineering 145, you should be able to launch your product on Monday. And I don't think you should launch it at Stanford, which is the nicest country club-like environment ever, okay? Don't launch there. Launch on the front lines of entrepreneurship at a tech conference like TechCrunch, like GigaOM, or VentureBeat, which all the teams that I've mentored have been goaded and pressured into launching at frontline events. Even App Nation, or, I mean, big conferences. And if you want to read about how teams have done this, South by Southwest. If you want to read about how teams have done it, just type in my name and then the conference and then Engineering 145. And you'll see examples because people blog using my formula that I learned from Eric Ries. Eric Ries has minimum viable product. I have MVBP, minimum viable blog post. It's 12 sentences, 2 pictures, 1 focus. The concept of hacking Engineering, the mini company concept, circles back into doing sequels. You want to have whatever concept that you guys are doing be 80% what currently exists and 20% customization, and you want to get incredibly specific. The old way was get 1 million users and then figure out the business model. The new way is to, which you want to write down, grab your pen, engineer up a business model. Engineer up a business model. So all these things are cascading, working together. So when you're doing engineering up a business model, what you're specifically doing is you're trying to take 80% of what already exists, 20% customizations, and you can DJ up 2 APIs all day long, or just rip 1 API and use it. Engineer up a business model works simply like this. You find some old person. Okay, I'm going to use seasoned executive because I've been criticized to not say old person. How I define old person is anybody over 30. Remember, you as a sophomore, there is such little difference between you as a sophomore CS major and a 30-year-old who worked as a developer. The difference has never been smaller, so be empowered about that. So these street smart things are meant for you, and that's why Engineering 145 is so freaking popular right now. Some of the things I teach are dangerous, or seem dangerous, but they're not. They're just really recipes from 1983. They go against some venture capitalists, but they really don't. The mini company concept, engineer up a business model. Engineering up a business model when you, as a young person who is an undergrad, you want to find an old person, a seasoned executive, and you want to try to solve their $300,000 to $500,000 problem. Okay, you want to specifically identify one. Old people, okay, that are rich, they have $300,000 problems lying around everywhere. Okay, hone in and solve one thing. As an old person, and I'm going to switch hats from my undergrad hat to the old person hat, even though I live in a dorm room. The old person hat, it's amazing how retarded old people are. Old people don't read. They read an average of 1 book a year. The last time they learned something was from their college degree in the 80s. The way things work, I've never ever believed how absolutely dumb an old person is. Let's say you don't believe that, okay? Know that when you're talking to a rich person, you can easily find a $300,000 problem, okay? That's solvable by something that exists in the market right now. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to rip an API, okay? You're going to apply an application protocol interface, and most old people don't realize even how an API even works. I mean, engineer up a business model, you find a $300,000 problem, and you offer to solve it for between 30 to 50 grand. You take in 30 grand of revenue, you are immediately on the right side of the bell curve. Now, is an old person, seasoned executive, going to trust you, the kid, with a 50 grand purchase order? That's why once you've identified the problem, then they say, BS, I don't think you can solve my problem. That's when you implement this, which my mentor taught me. You can have it for the cost of this video and maybe a Facebook message. You know what? Forget about the Facebook message. I don't think you can even execute that, or texting my cell phone number, 650-283-8808, which is everywhere. 650, I know, I said it a little fast, 283-8008. If you didn't have a pen, it's 800-8283. That's also a guacamole recipe, which is how to close a deal with an old person using voicemail. I'm going to repeat that for you. How to close a deal with a seasoned executive over voicemail, or just how to close a deal over voicemail. Ranks number 1. Let's say the old person says and leaks out, hey, I've got a $300,000 problem. Yes, you can solve it for 30 to 50 grand. Let's keep it at 50. Old people that are rich, they're conditioned to buy $300,000 bills, okay, for $50,000. That's how they get rich, okay, is they bought $20 bills for $3, $4, or $5. My father taught me that a person who buys something for $2 and sells it for $20 and thinks that it's a 10% profit margin, guess what my father thinks, and me now, thinks that that person who buys something for $2, sells it for $20, thinks that it's 10% profit margin. What do you call that person? A genius! An effing genius. Because you keep doing that, you will make money. Going back to finding a $300,000 problem, solving it for $50,000. An old person's not just going to hand you $50K. He's also not going to do a contract, which is why my mentor taught me how to do what this guacamole recipe is, which is the Larry Chang reverse rebate model. Google it. It's a stepwise thing. There's even a Yahoo feature article on the Larry Chang reverse rebate model. It goes simply like this. You offer and confirm the $300,000 problem, okay? They do not think, the old person has now a need, okay? Before they knew you, there was no need, no trust. Now they have a need that you've identified, but now no trust of you to actually execute this. That's why you have to do something called internal escrow. This concept's awesome, okay? It's awesome, awesome, awesome. Traditional escrow, old people, old, stodgy, doesn't work kind of way escrow, okay, is when two parties, you and the buyer of the $300,000 problem, now $50,000 thing, Escrow is parked in the middle, meaning you don't control it and they don't control it. Internal escrow is putting the responsibility of them paying, they're paying you on their shoulders. Internal escrow means the money actually never leaves the company's control and coffers. It's set aside in a different bank account that once you do this thing, which it dovetails with. One-way letter of intent. One-way letter of intent. Contracts. Old people, people who are non-preneurs, they're trying to get a contract done with a big company. It's hard to do, even for me, and I'm dirty awesome at getting contracts done. They're still hard. For you, they're going to be impossible. For a Stanford MBA, well, now I teach there, but the internal escrow, okay? One-way letter of intent. This is how a one-way letter of intent works. A contract is mutual, okay? Both parties have to sign. A one-way letter of intent is I obligate to you, my buyer, 35 things. If those things aren't met, don't release escrow. You're removing the risk of theirs, which is when I'm trying to remove your risk from you, because this program actually costs $15,000. It doesn't. You're already paying Stanford. And for every kid I sign up for Engineering 145 in the summer, I get a grand total of $0 extra. But I do financially benefit, or used to financially benefit, in my 3 summers. The Larry Chang reverse rebate model is simply where you're doing internal escrow and a one-way letter of intent. And you're taking the risk away from the people who are giving you the money into your own burden, where if you don't perform those 30-some steps in the one-way letter of intent, you don't get paid. I hope you've been made a little bit more curious about what happens inside of Engineering 145, and hopefully I can facilitate some of this, because I believe that you should be able to get the knowledge and the network of Engineering 145 before you go to take Engineering 145 winter quarter with Tom Byers, or spring quarter with Chuck Easley, I think, or summer quarter with Tom Kosnick in 2013. The same way that when I was an undergrad, my grades weren't straight A's, because the University of Illinois, while I was an athlete, they don't hand out straight A's. And Harvard Business and Stanford Business School, they're closed to me. So I had to get the knowledge and the network of those business schools before I could get rejected by those business schools. And that's why the book that I read, which you can get for 1 cent online, what they don't teach at Harvard Business School, is available used for 1 cent. And get the knowledge of business school before you even go. And basically it's 3 areas of business school that we need the knowledge of right now. Finance, okay? Net present value, term, interest rate, future value, interest rate. Critical. Those are the 5 things. Finance. Internal rate of returns. That's the core of finance, and that's something that you can get right now if you're in engineering. Remember, finance, okay, is like engineering for retards. I could have done finance in business school freshman year, high school. Maybe sophomore year. Easy junior, senior year. In fact, if I would have taken the GMATs when I was a senior in high school, I think I actually would have done better than scoring in the 90+ percentile of GMATs. Getting the knowledge of finance, accounting. Accounting is actually kind of hard compared to finance. Finance is extremely intuitive. Accounting has a bunch of things that are counterintuitive, like when my sales double, my accounts receivable don't double, they actually triple. Some weird rules of thumb, income statements, balance sheets, not exactly the easiest things, but critical for you to know. And then a handful of marketing OB books, which literally, it's like free reading. If you've ever gone through an engineering textbook or a chemistry textbook, that's laden with information. A business school, just go to the bookstore and look up these class numbers, and the Stanford, bless them for my intrusion and hosting me and being really, really nice. You can get all of their agenda and syllabuses, free. I mean, if you want the knowledge of the business school, you can get it. And that's why I'm imploring you in Hacking Engineering 145 to get the knowledge in the network before you go. There's one textbook, there's two textbooks, now maybe a third optional one. Tom Byers has got the Technology Ventures book. Tom Gosnick has Gears. I recommend getting those two books. And a third book if you want to really, not my book, no. My book's just free on the videos and the articles. And I do have a live version coming out 11/11/14. But get my mentor's book, What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School, written by Mark McCormack. It's got a bunch of street smart things. And there are videos, stepwise things. To think of these videos as entrepreneur GPS for your fledgling startup or now mini company concept, where stepwise you want to have just-in-time entrepreneurship education where that meets you wherever you are at entrepreneurially. Now, there's going to be a bunch of old people, okay, telling you that you should step into entrepreneurship. You don't have to step into entrepreneurship. In fact, I love Engineering 145 and the similar class at the business school at Wharton that's also technology entrepreneurship, also called, oh yeah, Engineering 145, which is going to be co-taught by undergrads. How hilarious am I that I'm cramming in to a business school a class for undergrads taught by undergrads called Engineering 145. Pretty funny, right? It does solve the Whartonite Seeks Code Monkey. Whartonite Seeks Code Monkey is a hilarious meme. I'm sorry to be making fun of Wharton, but it is funny. Where an MBA seeks a Code Monkey is like me looking for two musicians to start a band, right? Maybe I should learn to play an instrument or sing something. The hacking of Engineering 145, you can get all these things inside of Engineering 145, even if you don't want to be a founder. In fact, at MIT, I do this program called Engineering Entrepreneurship Education for people who might never be a founder. Let me repeat that. Engineering Entrepreneurship Education for people who might never be a founder. The reason for that is I watched my father, Tom Chang, go through the experience of transitioning from engineer to entrepreneur. In fact, there's a video of that also called the Tom Chang Engineer to Entrepreneur Transformation. I watched granularly and specifically how he made that transition even though his three older brothers all were entrepreneurs. Yet because he went to MIT and because he was uber street smart, I mean his older brothers went to Ivies too, but for some reason MIT just slows that process down, whereas Stanford sort of speeds it up a little bit. But just because you're taking Engineering 145 doesn't mean that you have to force start a thing. In fact, it can even be a joke business. If you're Asian and watching this, okay, if you're white, maybe if you're white or Latin or black or something else, maybe earmuffs right now because I'm just going to talk to my Asian brothers and sisters. As an Asian engineer, okay, the best thing you can do is go partially retarded. Look at the most successful engineers that are entrepreneurs. James Hong, he started Hot or Not. He used to be a legitimate software engineer. Starts Hot or Not. People loved it. That spawned, it's a prequel to Mark Zuckerberg's Face Smash at Harvard, which I think it's called something else now, like The Book of Faces or something. Ben He, another engineer, he started a company that I don't think is even grammatically correct. It's called I Can Has Cheeseburger. I Can Has Cheeseburger? Seriously? It's about cats, and I actually have a book called Graph Out Loud, okay? Graph Out Loud, it's pretty partially retarded. It's almost fully retarded. And that's a way to make yourselves a little bit more approachable because you don't want to be the douchey people coming from Stanford University. I recommend that you start using the phrase and practicing this in front of a mirror or maybe in front of video, which is, yes, I go to Palo Alto's Communities College. And your little call to action before you take notes or start something is host an after party. Okay, you can. It's an MVP. Eric Ries says minimum viable product. I recommend that you do a minimum viable party. No alcohol is necessary. Just do pizza and tap water. Invite me. I'll creepily come. You've got my cell. And I hope that you can do a couple of little things that get you and your entrepreneur muscles flexed, even if you're not thinking about starting something, because then you can, along with maybe a couple of your classmates, be accidental entrepreneurs later on down the road when an opportunity like just smacks you in the face, like Robert Noyes, who started Intel, or all the genius people that are in this town. A lot of them are accidental entrepreneurs. So hopefully some of these things inside of Engineering 145 and previewing them will help you better be prepared when you're making the transition from these lemonade standy, dorm stand kind of businesses and all these guacamole recipes, which there's actually another video which is lemonade and guacamole, the anchor concepts inside of Engineering 145. Hopefully some of these things will just help you flex your entrepreneur muscles, and it was really nice to meet you via this video. Or re-meet you if we've met already. Say hi.